Hello and welcome to another review of Drones Visual. Today I'm very excited. As you can see, I have over here Xiaomi's first quadcopter. As many of you know, Xiaomi is mainly famous for their smartphones, but they actually produce a broad range of products, from home appliances to Bluetooth speakers and wearables. Now they're making an epic entry into the drone market with a very interesting drone or quadcopter that looks really nice, and it will come in several camera options from Full HD to 4K. Xiaomi has decided to incorporate many of the controls for this drone within an app that we'll be taking a look at later in the video. I intend to do several videos about the Xiaomi Mi drone. This first part of the review will be quite extensive as I do the unboxing, build, firmware update and setup of this drone, and of course we'll do some flying as well. Then later, in later videos, I'll cover some of the functionality of the app and some cool things that you can do with this drone. Okay, so we are now ready to take a look at the content of the box, or I should say perhaps boxes, because there are actually two. As I was saying, we get two boxes with this drone. The first box, the large one, contains, as you can imagine, the drone, props, and all the other components or accessories that I will be showing you one by one, while the second box contains a gimbal with the FPV camera that come all integrated. Let's begin by the box with the FPV camera and the gimbal that we have over here. I'm going to go ahead and open the box to check out what we find inside. Right after we remove the protective cover of the box, we will see the instructions manual that is in Chinese, but the diagrams are rather easy to understand. It has some information about the camera and how to place it, and the same about the gimbal. Right under the instructions manual, we will find the actual gimbal and the camera well protected by a foam, so I think there's very little risk of damage during transportation. Here you can have a better view of how the gimbal comes packed in the box. You can see that it's rather well protected. And now here you can see how the gimbal and the camera actually look like. It's a nice design, appealing to the eye, and later in the video we will cover the gimbal and the camera with more details so you can see it better. The next thing we get is a letter from Xiaomi thanking us for having purchased the product and welcome any feedback, so hit them up if you have any ideas. Then it is time actually now to open the big box, which contains most of the gold. Let's go ahead and see what we find inside. As you can see, the first thing we see inside the box is the Xiaomi Mi drone with all four motors protected by some foams. Then right under the drone, we'll find all the other components properly organized. I'm not sure whether you have noticed that the components or accessories are actually numbered starting from left to right. Let's cover these components one by one. We'll get two sets of self-tightening props that seem rather well designed, at least judging by the appearance. You may have noticed that the props have two colors, red and metallic. These colors are telling you which motor they belong to. And we will take a closer look at that later in the video. There is also some sort of a labeling on the edge of the props telling us that they're made of some ultra fiber. Well, I'm not sure I can say much about that, but it must be something strong. Then close to the center, you will see a diagram showing you the direction of the spin and how to lock or unlock the props. So there's really no way to get these props in the wrong motor. Next, we'll find a set of tools and screws in a little plastic bag that I'm holding over here. Let's take a look inside the bag to see what we find. The first thing we get here is a tiny screwdriver, and let me warn you that this one is not enough to take the drone apart. This one is just to place the prop guards in place, so you'll need your own screwdrivers to take the drone apart. And then we have this tiny Xiaomi key, and we'll see later in the video what's that for. Then we have this set of screws for the prop guards. We will put them on later in the video, but now you can see how they look like. And these are the prop guards. They are red and made of a resistant rubbery plastic, which is ideal as it will bend, but it will not break or shatter. So that's a good thing. And then you will see the two holes for the screws on both sides. The next thing we have this envelope with the instruction manual. The instructions are in Chinese, but they're rather simple to understand because of the diagrams they have used. Then we have over here the cable to supply the balance charger or the battery charger of the Xiaomi drone. And this over here is the balance charger. And let's now take a look at its main features. If we look on one side, this is where you plug the power supply cable that I showed you a moment ago. Then the little thing over here that looks like a microphone is actually a connector for the battery. Once you remove the cover, you will see the connectors inside, and I'll show you how to use it later. Then of course we have also with the package a USB cable to connect your smartphone or to charge the transmitter of the Xiaomi Mi drone, and we will take a look at that later as well. Then it has come to check the battery. This is a 5100 milliamp battery that comes with the drone, and according to the specification it is 17.6 volts. Interesting. And here you can see the battery connectors used to charge the battery and to supply the drone. On the other side you will find the same connector, so there are actually two in total, just like in the back of the drone. On the battery we can see an array of LEDs that will let us know the charge of the battery when we press the power button once. So you can see here the battery is not fully charged yet. And here you can see the release button that you need to press to extract the battery from the drone. In my scale, I can see that it weighs around 424 grams. Yeah, 42 grams, sorry. That's good information to have. Let's now cover the transmitter. First we have here the power button to power the transmitter, and then right next to it we will see a strip of LEDs that will let us know when the transmitter is on or the charging has been completed, among other things that we will check out later. Then on the other side we have the auto takeoff and landing button that we will also cover later in the video. But the name pretty much says it, although you kind of know what is it for. This here in the center is an eyelet, although no straps come included with this transmitter. You might use your own later. And right above the eyelet we will find the auto return home button. You can see the icons and they're kind of explicit. Then of course both sticks on this transmitter are spring loaded and centered, and they feel pretty nice. Next we have both antennas, and they can be easily folded, and actually they allow for a really nice range of rotation, which is nice of course, and you also see that later in the video. A really cool feature of this transmitter is that it can deploy the smartphone tray right from here. You just need to pull it out and it comes nice and smoothly. This smartphone tray can be extended, although it won't take very large smartphones, and it will certainly not take tablets. I'm surprised that they can fit all that inside the transmitter. Wow, well done Xiaomi. This dial over here on the left will control the camera's pitch, and again that's something that we will take a look at later in the video. Then the other dial controls the lights of the drone. If you move it in one direction, the lights will become brighter, and then if you move it in the other direction, the lights will go dimmer. Then on the sides of the transmitter we have this sort of nice rubbery parts, making the transmitter really comfortable to hold. The same pads can be found here on the rear section as well. And then there are two buttons on the rear section. Button A over here can be used to take photos by pressing it once, and then on the other side we have a button labeled button B, which can be used to initiate video recording. Then at the bottom of the transmitter we'll find a sort of a rubbery protective cover, properly labeled, and as you already imagine, this covers and protects the USB ports. The micro USB port is to change the transmitter, to charge the transmitter while when you're not using it, and the standard USB port is to connect your smartphone. Initially when we take the drone out of the box, its landing gear is extended, so let's go ahead and change that. First we need to unlock the landing gear. There is a lock on the side that we need to move in order to unlock the landing gear. Once we do that, we can carefully start applying some pressure. Just make sure you have successfully pushed the lock, otherwise you'll risk damaging the landing gear. We follow the same procedure for the other landing gear. Move the lock to the right position. If it feels too tight, double check that the lock is in the right position and apply some force. Take your time, you don't want to end up breaking your brand new drone. To unlock the landing gear, if you want to move it to the previous position, you'll have to sort of slide the button and then keep it pressed. At least it worked like that for me. so just do it just in case. Here we have the Xiaomi drone standing on its feet. I really like the design. I think it's original and minimalist. The plastic of the body feels really good quality, and you can see right away that this is no cheap ass drone. This is a top contender ready to take a bite of the drone market. If we zoom in a little, we'll see here on the top of the drone the Mi logo. And then there seems to be some sort of separate plastic plate, probably protecting the GPS antenna of the drone, maybe also the flight controller. And then the body of the drone itself is composed of two main plastic plates that are held together by a group of screws that I'll be showing you a little bit later in the video. Then if we move here to the front section of the quadcopter, we have this sort of glossy section with a protective layer. Let's go ahead and remove that layer. I thought initially that there would be some sort of LEDs here, that would be cool, but I haven't seen that. And then as I was saying before, the GPS antenna might be right behind that section over there. All arms have these sort of ventilation ducts to cool down the electronic speed controllers or the ESCs that are located right under. And each arm or motor is labeled with an either red or gray stripe indicating the color of the propeller that needs to be placed in the respective motor. In this case, you need to place a red propeller here because we have a red line. Then here on the side, you can see the locks that keep the landing gear in a determined position. I showed you that a little bit earlier in the video, if you recall. Then if we move to the rear section of the drone, we can see the vast compartment for the 5100 milliamp battery, and then a couple of connectors at each side of the drone where the battery will actually connect. If you recall, the battery also has two connectors like this. The landing gear of the Xiaomi drone has these sponges under that will help you during landing. It might make your landing smoother, especially if you're landing on concrete. Then right under we have a cover protecting the compartment for the gimbal. So under we have some connectors that we will see in a moment. Right under is the lock that keeps the cover that protects the components or the connectors there in place, and there are a couple of icons that show you in what direction you can unlock it or lock it. And then around it you find some ventilation ducts. We might get some airflow here while flying to cool down the internal components of the drone. Let's now go ahead and slide the lock to remove the protective cover and take a look at what connectors it is protecting. Once we have removed the cover, the compartment is exposed, and we can see here on the top a USB connector that will allow you to connect the drone to your PC, although you can perform a firmware upgrade through your smartphone. Then right under the USB you will see the connector for the gimbal that we will see later how to connect it, and then the dot right under the gimbal is a connector to actually do a transmitter binding if you decide to switch transmitter at some point. And then you have the sort of clips that keep the plate in place that you can see here that they retract when you pull this sort of lock down. You probably also have noticed that there are cooling vents for the ESCs under the arms as well, so not only on top but also you have them under, so I guess that's good cooling for the ESCs. And again, sorry, I believe that the flight controller and the GPS antenna are somewhere above this section here. We might take a look inside in another video. If we continue examining the drone, we will notice a prominent structure near the bottom. This structure seems to be packing a couple of ultrasonic sensors that are these two black circles over here. And then right above there seems to be a sort of a optical sensor. I assume that they could assist the drone during landing or flying in certain conditions. We will find some more information about that later. Then of course you have the ventilation ducts here to cool down the unit while the drone flies. And then at the end of each arm we can find a cover protecting the LED lights. It should be rather easy to remove this cover by accessing this little screw that you can see over here in the corner. Here you can see or take a better look at the drone from below, and you can see the arms and the dimensions of the drone. And at this point, there is really no backpack for this drone, so you might need to use your own DIY case for it. And you can see each arm has around 4 screws, and the landing gear has some screws as well, but it shouldn't be too much trouble to actually disassemble the whole unit, and we might do that in later videos, not today. You might need to actually remove these screws here from the landing gear to access all the other components. At least it looks like that. As you can see, the motors in the quad are actually labeled not only with Xiaomi's logo, but they also have the dimensions of the motor, in this case 2212, just like DJI's, and the speed is, the revolutions per volt is 800 kV. Good to have that information. This motor should produce more torque than DJI's 920 kV, I guess. Let me show you now how to charge the battery. First, we need to connect the power supply cable to the charger. Once the power supply cable is connected, then we can proceed to connect the battery. The battery has 2 connectors. You can connect it on either end of the battery. There's only one way in which the connector pins will insert in the battery connector. So you should have you shouldn't have problems with this. In any case, just follow what I'm doing here and you should have no issues whatsoever. Once we connect the power supply cable, the LEDs in the battery will light on and start blinking. Once the charging process has concluded, the LEDs will turn off, so you know then that your battery is fully charged. Charging the transmitter is pretty straightforward as well. You just need to uncover the micro USB port at the bottom of the transmitter, and then you can use any USB cable to charge your transmitter. Just as with the battery, when the transmitter charging process has concluded, the LED lights will stop blinking and turn off, and then you pretty much will know that the charging process has concluded. You can see here that the light is blinking, so it's currently charging. Now let's take a look at the gimbal. This is a 3-axis gimbal, and here you can see that there is some physical limits to the motion of the camera and the motors. There's not something like 360 degree rotation or panning or anything like that, but you still get a really good range of motion. The camera has a 1600 megapixel Sony sensor and can record 60 FPS Full HD. Xiaomi claims it can stabilize up to 2000 vibrations, if I recall correctly, per second, and it comes with a system of 6 lenses. That's pretty good, actually. You can see how good the design is. It's sort of pretty well integrated. If you look especially here on the side, the motors and the camera, everything is kind of like premium quality. At least it feels like that. And then here we might have some screws. I will take a look at that a little bit later. And then here the motor that controls the roll of the gimbal. On the other side, we'll have a slot for the micro SD card. Xiaomi recommends that you use class 10 micro SD cards. And then in the center, we have this tiny mini fan to actually cool down the internal components. Really nice. Then right under the fan, we'll find a USB connector or plug, that will allow us to connect the gimbal to a computer and potentially perform some adjustments. Then this button over here, I'm still not sure what it does, but I will find out later and I will let you know. The base of the gimbal is made of plastic, and it has 4 rubber dampening balls that will reduce vibration coming from the spinning motors of the aircraft. They feel actually a little bit soft, but well, let's see how they perform later. On the upper section of the gimbal, we'll find the pins that insert into the connector of the drone and that receive controls like that you will basically from the flight controller. Now let's place the gimbal on the drone. To do that, we need to remove the plate that covers the connectors by sliding the lock backwards, just like I showed you before. Once the cover has been removed, we can then proceed to insert the gimbal. The camera should of course be facing forward. It's very hard to make a mistake placing the gimbal, I think, so don't worry too much about that. Let me point though that normally you should be able to push the gimbal down and hear a click indicating that the gimbal is properly secured. However, by some reason I had some issues getting the lock to grab the gimbal properly, so I had to move it a little bit up and down before I heard the click. If this happens to you, just be patient and move a little bit the gimbal up and down until you hear the click. You don't really want to go out there and fly with a gimbal half loose, so make sure you get this right. Just be patient and until you find the right spot, and then you will hear the click. telling you that the gimbal is properly positioned. This is how the drone looks like once the gimbal has been placed on the drone. There's enough space between the camera and the floor. The camera seems to be also rather well balanced, I guess. And I guess the camera is very light, so the gimbal should not use a lot of power. The next thing I would like to do is to place the prop guards. You don't need to do this if you don't want to, but I will go ahead and do it, especially because currently there are no spare props for sale. Although you could use some other props, of course. There are 2 screws that secure the prop guards in place. You can use the tiny screwdriver, that Xiaomi provided, that comes included with the drone, but I will use my own screwdriver. I think it's better. Just make sure they aren't loose, because otherwise we might get a lot of unwanted vibration coming from it. And this is how the drone looks like once we have placed the prop guards. It's really big now actually, and it's gonna be a little bit troublesome to move it around. Now that the prop guards are in place, I will show you how to place the props. Although this is the last thing you should do. I just want to get it done now, but you can do that at the end. Each arm has a strip, which is either red or gray, and the color of the props need to match this line. So in this case we have a red line, so we will use the props that have the red knot. Okay, now let's go ahead and install the app. Before you install the app, let me tell you that you need to scan the QR code that comes in the instruction manual. You'll be then taken to Xiaomi's website, where you'll find a download button, and then you can start downloading the app. The app is in Chinese, and there is some sort of non-official version circulating around that is in English. I will just show you how to do it with the Chinese version, and I will help you a little bit understanding what the different messages you get with the app. So just follow what I do, and you should be good even if you use the Chinese app. I think it's pretty easy and straightforward to do that. Once the app has been installed, then you go ahead and power your transmitter, short press and long press the power button, and you hear a beep sound, and the LED lights of the transmitter will turn on. The next step will be to insert the battery. I advise that you actually fully charge the battery of the drone and the transmitter before doing this, but you could do it also right out of the box. It's really up to you. When you insert the battery, you will hear a click sound that will basically let you know that the battery is properly inserted. The next step is to power the drone, just like we did with the transmitter. We need to short press and long press, and once you do that, the LED lights will go on, and you hear a sequence of sounds, and the gimbal will start its sort of calibration procedure. Once both the transmitter and the drone are on, we can proceed to connect the cable that will make possible that our smartphone and the drone communicate with each other. For that, we need to use a standard USB connector in the transmitter, and you can use either the supply cable or your own USB cable. Now the transmitter and the smartphones are connected, and we can proceed to open the Xiaomi application that we have previously installed. To use the application, you might need to create a Xiaomi account. Just do that before continuing. I have already created my account, so I have no problems with that. Once the account has been created, then we can sign in, and if you haven't connected your smartphone yet, you might see this message here telling you to do so. And your smartphone, you will be redirected to the option that is called USB Tethering. I assume this option should be pretty much in most Android smartphones. It should look the same, that just what I have over here. You should then activate this option. As soon as you do, hit back and return to the app. As soon as you return to the app, you will see that the smartphone and the transmitter will start to sync, and you will be prompted and asked to actually perform a firmware update. So I'll go ahead and do that. Basically, after you press OK, the application will start to download the update. It takes a while to download the update, so I will just fast forward to the process. Once the update has been downloaded, you'll be asked to whether you want to install it, and of course we want to do that by pressing the right button on the screen. After pressing that button, the installing process will begin, and this will take a while. So again, I will fast forward through most of it. Now, once you reach 86%, the drone will reboot, and it will start beeping for a while. As the drone beeps, the update will continue to install, so there's nothing you need to really do about it. Just wait for a while longer until the progress bar reaches 100%. I think the beeping sound will stop quickly, and then after that you'll just need to wait a minute or two, and the upgrade or update will be done. Then we can get back to the app by pressing the button in the center of the screen, and then we are greeted with the same screen that we saw before. So once more, we need to follow the instructions on the screen, and we press next, and we're shown a message telling us that we need to enable USB tethering just like we did before. We will enable USB tethering to allow our smartphone and our transmitter to communicate, and then we'll press the return button to get back to the app. Once we do that, once we hit the return button, we'll be again in this same interface we saw before, but now instead of being prompted with a firmware update message, we will see a series of messages. The first message is telling us to read these instructions carefully, so let's go ahead. The first one is telling us that we need to complete 300 minutes of flying time. Otherwise, we won't be able to exceed an altitude of 50 meters, and we won't be able to fly beyond 100 meters, and also there will be a speed lock limit in the quad. And here basically it tells us not to fly in open spaces and not to get too close to the drone. Then here we have some basic tips telling us about what's the front, the rear section of the drone, stuff that is very useful for beginners, but I'm not gonna cover every single message. They are not that important. You can just pretty much scroll through them. Then here obviously is just teaching you how to use the throttle, that you can use the throttle to go up and things like that. That's kind of like very basic. And here is teaching you how to use the roll, and then how to unlock the motors. I mean, you could just go next pretty much. It's not that important unless you're a total beginner. And then the last message is related to auto takeoff and landing, and we will cover that later. Once we're done, the app will open. The first time you open the app, it will require that you do a compass calibration, so you'll be prompted with this message. Initially, when I tried to do the compass calibration in this reduced area here, it failed, so I had to go outdoors and do that outside. So I recommend that you do the calibration outside for better results. Here we are outside now, and we will perform the compass calibration. Again, we follow a sequence. First, we turn on the transmitter, then we power the drone, and then after that, basically we'll connect the smartphone to the transmitter using the USB cable provided. After we have done that, we will then proceed to go ahead and open the Xiaomi app that comes here. You can see it. It takes a few seconds to open, and then we're greeted with the same message as before. We just will press next, and then again we have to enable USB tethering, so we do that, and once the option is active, we return to the app, and then it will take a few seconds to connect to the drone. Let's wait for a second. Okay, it's pretty much here. Now again we get the message that we need to do a compass calibration, so let's hit OK and start the calibration process. Now let me tell you something. If you press the calibration button but you wait too long, you might get an error message. Just don't worry too much about that. I mean, if you press, you can press just continue and do it once more. However, if you change the location of your drone while it's connected, you might need to restart it. Like for example, now I got this warning message telling me I guess I waited too long. So I basically need to hit OK and then proceed to do the calibration. So now we're ready to go. So let's take the drone and follow the diagrams in the app. It's pretty much straightforward, and the app will guide you through the whole process step by step and tell you what you need to do. You will only need to do this once, so you don't have to worry about needing to go through all this procedure every single time you need to fly. Just do it once and you're good to go. Although it might be a good idea if you're moving to a faraway region to do a compass calibration for better results, but that will be up to you already. Then once the calibration is done, the quad will beep, and we're pretty much then ready to use the app and the drone itself. and you'll be able to see your location on the map and some more information. Here you can see it. You can pretty much see my location, and there's some more information that I will cover in a moment. Once everything is set, let's see whether we can unlock the motors. We press both sticks downwards and to the center, and then the motors start spinning, and oh boy, that's the sound I love. Then to lock the motors, we just lower the throttle and move it far into the left for a few seconds, and the motors will stop. I will do a separate video about the app and all the advanced functions, but for now let's cover the main interface. You can see here that you have a button that will allow you to switch between the map mode and the camera mode. So you will choose this camera mode when flying FPV, and you can see exactly what the camera is seeing. But you can always alternate between modes during flights, no problem with that. To record video, there is a button here on the right. Once you press it, you will hear a sound, and then the timer here on the top right corner of the screen will start running. You can also switch between video and photo mode easily just by pressing the button label here. Let me see if I can show you. Like right here next to the shutter, there is a button. If we press it, wait a minute. Okay, now we're basically in photo mode, and we will take photos instead of videos. That was a photo, for example. And then we're back to the map mode. Here you can basically see the options and information you get on the main interface. I do plan to make a separate video covering all the app functionality, but just so you have an idea of what the things on your screen mean, I don't want to make this video any longer. The next thing I would like to show you is how you can control the LED lights and the gimbal using the dials and the transmitter. To change the intensity of the lights, use the dial you will see on the right side of the transmitter. And basically, if you move it to one side, the lights will become brighter. If you move it to the other one, they will become dimmer. Really nice during night flying, and I will definitely give it a try while flying in the night. The next thing I would like to cover before going out is the Gimbal Control. Using the left side dial, you can control the pitch of the gimbal. You can notice that the camera adjusts its pitch very smoothly. It looks really nice, so your video recorded looks really nice. And also the gimbal will respond to inputs from the yaw. So basically, you can see here that as I move the yaw, the gimbal also responds. And it will follow the yaw very smoothly to avoid messing up your footage, which is really nice. Now it's time to go outside and perform our maiden fly. Let's cover the sequence for the last time. First, insert the battery, then we power on the transmitter by short and long pressing the power button, and then we will hear a beeping sound and the LED lights will go on. Next, we need to power the drone by short and long pressing the power button, and we will hear the beeping sound telling us the the drone is on. And now it's time to get the USB cable connected to the standard USB port in the transmitter. We have done that. Then we can connect the smartphone and follow all the steps you already know very well, as I have covered already these steps several times. And then once we are ready, we can then try the auto takeoff mode. We need to short press and long press the button on the right side of the transmitter, and once we do this, the motor will start spinning and the drone will quickly rise to an altitude of around 6 meters or something like that. Then to activate the auto landing, we need to do the same. As the drone is in midair, we short press and long press the same button as before, and the quadcopter will slowly descend. Once it touches the ground, the motors will turn off. Today is a really windy day over here, however you can see that the drone seems quite steady and is keeping its position while shaking a little bit as it battles the wind. This is how the Xiaomi drone looks from behind while flying. In terms of stability, this drone is doing a great job so far, and it seems to have a solid GPS lock in this mode. Very slight variation in position and altitude. It's pretty windy, so I think I can tell you that it's doing a pretty good job. So don't get too close to the drone, stay at least 5 meters away from it. I'll break the rules now for a moment to show you how steady this drone flies. You can use me as a reference point to see that even if I push it or pull it a little slightly, it won't change its position by much. I love when a GPS drone is so well behaved, just like the Hobson H501S, very docile and nice to control. Now let's do one circle here to evaluate the speed and see how it feels to fly around. As I accelerate forward, you can notice that it actually flies very slowly. This happens because Xiaomi has locked the speed. This means that you need to fly more than 300 minutes to be able to experience the real speed of the drone. The yaw rate has been slowed down as well, and I noticed that the drone struggles a bit when I change the direction towards the wind. I will need to fly this few times more to unlock the goodies, which are flying beyond 100 meters and 50 meters of altitude, and to test a bit the actual speed of the drone. But these settings now are actually pretty good for video. I think they will help stability and beginners a lot. I understand why Xiaomi will want people to get acquainted with the drone before trying to push the limits. Although experienced pilots might not be happy with this, I think it's perfectly okay. 300 minutes, it's not a lot of time, so you will quickly be done with that part. Now let's take a look at some footage recorded with the onboard camera. Please note that the footage from the onboard camera is so short because I mistakenly pressed the button on the red of the transmitter and stopped the recording by accident. So please watch out while you're flying, don't press that button. I will make it up to you in next videos with more footage from the onboard camera. So I hope you understand that. The footage you're seeing right now has been recorded in Full HD at 30 FPS. That seems to be the default setting, with a bitrate of 29 megabits per second. You can see that the gimbal and the image stabilization together are doing a great job, because I can confirm that there's a lot of wind up there pushing the drone, and you can see that the trees are shaking from one place to another. Considering the weather, I think the quality of the image is really awesome. But I'll wait for some feedback from aerial photography experts. They might actually have a better saying in this. Let me show you now how the auto return home function works. Okay, the quad is flying around 80 to 100 meters from me now. As you can see, I have perfect FPV reception here. I'm getting zero interference, which is pretty awesome. As I can fly beyond 100 meters, I will activate now the auto return home function. And let's see how it works. Once you move the red switch on the transmitter, the drone will engage right away in the auto return home mode. Let me grab the camera and point it to the direction from which the drone is coming, so you can see it better. You can see it's up here. Actually, it flies back really fast. Now it's almost here on top of me, and it's preparing the descent. I can feel it's fighting the wind, but as it approaches the ground, but it seems to be managing without problems. Let's see how far it lands from the takeoff point, which is a circle we have here on the ground. Here it comes. Okay, it has landed within a meter from the takeoff location. That's fairly good. I'll say it's not a large margin of error, and as soon as it lands, it then turns off the motors. Okay, I want to stop here because otherwise my video will be endless. I think this is a good introduction video. I will do separate videos for more specific features like advanced app functionality, video quality, etc. And of course, I will follow your questions to do some more testing. So do not hesitate and ask me anything you would like to know, and I will put it to the test. Now I will share my impressions. So far I'm really loving the drone. In these very windy conditions, I got around 16 minutes flying time, although I was not precisely measuring that, and I will cover it with more details in other videos. I like the integration with the app. I'm very fond of the design of the drone and the transmitter, happy with the choice of motors and how good the GPS lock seems to be working in this initial flight. I'm also quite impressed with the quality of the footage, both in terms of stability and in terms of video quality as well. Even on the very windy conditions, the gimbal did a good job. Also, you can change the intensity of the LED lights using your transmitter, control the pitch of the gimbal, and take photos and record videos. What I didn't like so much is that you can really arm the drone without your smartphone. There is this sort of symbiosis between the transmitter and the smartphone. The initial setup is a little bit time consuming. The app is also in Chinese and the instructions, although the diagrams are rather explicit. I don't think you'll have a lot of trouble with that. Although it would be nice to get some front light LEDs also on the quad, I think. I will continue doing some more videos about the Xiaomi Mi drone, as I saw many advanced features in the app that seem very interesting, like waypoints, circle around, and stuff like that. So I would like to cover that in future videos. So stay tuned for my next videos. Okay, I hope my review has been useful to you. I hope I managed to cover enough for the first video. If you have any questions, drop me some and I will try to answer them or do some testing. Also, if I have said anything incorrectly, do correct me, and in that way we all benefit from that. And if you're interested in the topic of drones, I would like to receive the latest news and reviews directly from China, please subscribe to my channel. Hope to see you all in my next video.